hours ago in mainstream media. Kurt Nimmo wrote a story last night, right as it began to break, that in a rural area of Oregon, hundreds of people that were demonstrating against the conviction of two ranchers for simply burning an area as a fire break so that their property wouldn't burn down. To protest that, the people had been there for the last few weeks on and off. We've been covering the whole situation for months. But now, three of the Bundy sons and a reported local militia have gone in and taken over the federal building that is the headquarters of the Wildlife Refuge. Now, regardless of which side of this story you're on, you can't debate that the feds have more than half the land in this country, and all over the United States, they're taking people's property that's paid for, that's free and clear, not federal land, like in the whole Texas Red River situation I talked about in a previous video earlier. But I will say this, with the timing of Obama set to go after the guns tomorrow, they say it's imminent tomorrow with the executive orders on Monday, the 4th of January, 2016 now. The timing of this, with Harry Reid calling the Bundys terrorists and the rest of it, optically, as I said earlier, is going to be perfect for the feds to say, see, the domestic threat isn't radical Islam, it's domestic patriot groups. Now, I get the feds are out of control. I get they're the ones with guns coming and taking over mines and farms and ranches and kicking people off land that have had grazing rights for 140-something years in the case of the Bundys. I get all that. And I admire what the Bundys and others have done. On record, I'm simply saying now, going in and taking over that federal building is being used to basically demonize the liberty movement. And now the Bundys are saying from all over the country, bring your guns, come here, let's make a stand, let's occupy this building for years. And they're calculating that the feds don't want a new Waco, and that the feds aren't going to move in there. Let's say the feds don't do that. Let's say they say it's going to be a new Waco, new Ruby Ridge, it's going to blow up in their face, they back off. They will then inject provocateurs into the surrounding area who will claim they're with these groups, who will then engage in all sorts of bizarre rhetoric, I've seen this before, to then demonize the general liberty movement. And at some point of their choosing, they'll pull off a false flag or something and tie it to this. I've been telling you the season of false flags is here. The time. When you look at the chess calculus geopolitically and domestically, 4 staged events in Obama's last year in office is perfect. The climate, the atmosphere is ready for this. And that's why we're saying fix things peaceably, have the states, have the governors, have the legislatures say no, have grand juries indict different feds that are out of control, support good whistleblowers in the FBI, in the Secret Service, in the ATF, that are exposing things like Fast and Furious and Benghazi. And let's not let the globalists with the George Soros plan play us off against each other. Look, they've done this in the Middle East. They've done this all over Europe. They've done this in Asia. They've done this recently in Ukraine. Soros is funding Black Lives Matter. Every TV channel shows police brutality and how bad the police are to create the perception that the revolution should be aimed at local government and a clash with law enforcement, which will then give globalists the power to federalize police and militarize them and then have them really come after the people. So they're playing us off against each other. I've been warning about this ad nauseum because you can see the white papers, the training, the preparations. That's what this is all lined up for. The armored vehicles being deployed to Oregon and to Indiana and Texas and every other state saying, the SWAT team commanders, this is for the veterans, this is for the patriots, this is for the constitutionalists, this is for the land rights activists. So we're letting them set the stage where the people and the government basically see each other as enemies instead of seeing the foreign globalist interest that have come in through Agenda 21, through UN treaties on record that are expanding wildlife refuges and grabbing the land, sometimes thousands of acres on each side of major rivers that have been in people's private holdings for, again, over 100 years in the case of the Red River families. And so Governor Abbott comes out and says, we're going to fight this. We're going to sue you. We're going to say no. We're going to have the state police up there to block the feds. We're going to, through legitimate government authority of the people, say no in the federalist system, where the states are checks and balances on the feds and vice versa. We had a big article on Infowars.com yesterday that was on DrugsReport.com, which we first reported. It's all over the news today, where the governor came out and said, I dare you, Obama, to come down here and take the guns with your executive order. So the whole climate of this is the system trying to push patriots into confrontations, which legitimately under the Declaration of Independence, we have a right to do. Under the Declaration of Independence, what the Bundys are doing, what the militia is doing is authorized. But just because you're authorized to do something doesn't mean you should do it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think they're bad people. I'm not judging them. I want to get the Bundys on today, the show 4 to 6 p.m. Central, obviously tomorrow's show. We're going to be covering all this. We're going to have reporters on the ground. But I still am just trying to point out, look at the climate, look at the time we're in. The only way the globalists can win is to get a shooting war going in this country. They've been trying to get it by taking the cases of police brutality and out-of-control police behavior, which out of 2 million police certainly does happen. And I'm not defending some of the bad stuff police do, but it's not the number one issue in the country. Cops kill about 1,050 people a year. Over 90% of that turns out to be justified shootings. Bad guys, bank robbers, liquor store robbers, guys that are suicide by cop, whatever. The point is 100 and something dead innocent people is not the number one issue in the world. In the aggregate, it's terrible. I'm sorry. Most of the cops shooting people in the back are being indicted. Stuff's being done about it. I say rein the cops in, get local control, all that. But it's not the number one issue in the country. They're trying to get Black Lives Matter and other groups to riot, to shoot, to bomb, to kill, because that's the plan, folks, to get us all at each other's throats. So will it be through Black Lives Matter? Will it be through bombing federal buildings and claiming patriots did it? Or trying to wind up patriots to get in a shooting war with the feds? I don't know, but we need to have very cool heads right now and be very, very peaceful right now. Because the whole globalist agenda is failing and is stalling. And as I've said, they're going to want to get violent. They're saying they want to kill Donald Trump all over the news. They get away with it. They're saying they want to arrest patriots and shut down talk radio and get rid of free speech this year. I've told you, and Matt Drudge has told you, they've told us they're coming for our free speech this year, not next year. Now it's 2016. Keep saying next year. It's now. So the climate, the lining up, the preparations for the PR rollout, the armored vehicles getting delivered, the military training, all of it points towards this year and the next. So this is the critical time to have Patriot cameras all over the place there in Oregon, so that whether it's the feds, provocateurs, hotheads, whatever, we document who pulls the trigger first. God forbid that happens. Who says what, who does what. And just the fact there's going to be so many cameras there, I guarantee you will restrain some of the Southern Poverty Law Center types and some of the other provocateur organizations out there that have long histories of winding up the white supremacists and other extremists and really bad stuff. Southern Poverty Law Center was running Elohim City that McVeigh was at in Oklahoma. And when different informants tried to expose it, they had them set up and indicted. So they've been making major preparations. They've been getting ready. And I hope the Bundys and others haven't walked into a trap. The ranchers that have been indicted for brush burning, they've said, hey, we don't want you to do this. Don't do this in our names. So that right there is deteriorating quickly, because with the Bundys, it was their surface rights. It was their land use. They had surface rights for grazing since 1870s. They had real standing. Harry Reid was in the wrong. His sons have been caught with a solar panel deal that was being built on land, up the road from it. This was a set-aside easement. They always build a straw man and go, they weren't building on that land. I know. It's a set-aside easement to then build on the other. They were in the wrong on every front. The feds had to back down. It was a big victory. Harry Reid blew up and said these are domestic terrorists. You look at the calculus, the different pieces of the chessboard here, doesn't look good. Pray for peace. Pray this doesn't get out of control. I think it's bad timing, and I think the Bundys could say, hey, we've made our point. This is how the feds just grab things and say they own it. This is the people's land. We were just exercising, our right to demonstrate while being armed. But I don't think that's happening. They've already committed, which you got to admire the courage. To quote Full Metal Jacket, Private Joker, silly and he's ignorant, but he's got guts and guts is enough. I'm not saying they're silly and ignorant. They're already saying, everybody get down here, everybody come here, everybody be armed, we're going to stay here for years, we're taking this land back. And the feds may just sit back and let it become an eyesore and then send in the unsavories. Or they might pull in there with armored vehicles and say, come out and surround the place and make a huge scandal out of it with Obama on the news saying, see, I got to take the guns, or I got to restrict the guns because all these crazy militia groups. And then boom, a federal building goes up. And we know who the prime suspects are in that. We know we caught the feds doing that. Oklahoma City, that's cut and dry at false flag. We know the names, who did it, all the witnesses. We have the cops expose it. I've made films on the subject. Go watch my interview with Don Browning, the head of the K9 Unit, Infowars.com. But there's a lot of other info here, but here's our story. Here's where we're winning the info war. Here's the Adon Salazar article that was on Drudge for 2 days. Texas governor challenges Obama on gun control. Come and take it. Governor invokes revolutionary battle cry in defense of Texas Second rights. That's who you want with that type of rhetoric, is a governor. Elected in the state house, in the governor's mansion, with moral authority, not grabbing a federal building. Standing on his ground. Still going?
Yep.
Texas governor challenges Obama to come and take the Lone Star State's guns. His president prepares to take action. And you see that story the day after ours. Just an example of how we're leading the media. And then let me shift gears into something really important. Nigel Farage had his airplane clearly sabotaged. The pilot is basically brain damaged today. Took him 2 years to recover. He's now the leader of a /Ron Paul /Donald Trump style movement. Frequent guest on our show. The wheels, all the wheels that had the lug nuts loosened, the police said it was sabotage officially. So they tried to kill him. He almost got killed and the wheels came off and he was going 70 miles an hour. So my point is that this is getting very, very violent. He's fighting the EU takeover. He's fighting the EU tyranny. They tried to kill him a few years ago. Now the wheel came off his car. The police said it was sabotage. A lot of this is happening to other patriots. The globalists with their COINTELPRO and ground forces have turned the heat up big time. Again, posing as patriot groups. Major offensives are getting launched. And the Vanguard and their scouts have just now been hitting our picket wire. It'll hurt the globalists to expose their criminal operations. It'll hurt the globalists to expose Hillary's crimes. It'll hurt the globalists to defend the Second Amendment. It'll hurt the globalists to point out that the federal government's lawless and just opens the borders up and brings illegals in. That's 10 times more lawless from their perspective, than what the Bundys are doing. And when you have a lawless government, people start pointing it out. It's Declaration of Independence. So I see where all this is going. It's just that this is a very important time to be alive. We're obviously covering this on the radio today, 4 to 6 p.m. I'm going to hand the baton back to David Knight on this front. And we're going to be, again, in Phoenix doing a big interview I'll be announcing tomorrow. I'm going to get on a plane this afternoon. I may go out to Oregon. I know Joe Biggs has been out hunting. He was just calling while we're doing this live feed. He's driving in from 2 hours out in the bush in Texas to get on a plane right now. We're lining all that up on Sunday. It's a small media organization. I want to thank you all for your prayers, your support. That's why it's more important than ever that you go to InfoWarsStore.com. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWars.com /show.